Hey there, folks. So I wanted to make a video showing how to make a toy from start to finish. This is going to be this Velcro log toy where you have an axe and you can split a log, quote unquote, that is Velcroed together using the axe. This is a small little 3D printable toy that would be probably close enough to being within the size requirements that it would be okay. This is inspired by a student who is making one of these right now. So I'm doing my own version of it to show people just an example of what you can do and to show some stuff to students. So without further ado, I'm going to be flipping back and forth, but I'm going to create this. Because I've done this a lot, I have the steps in my head, but basically I'm going to create the handle first here, sketching a circle, extruding it. And then I'm going to create the axe head, and then I'll create the log last. So those will be different steps, and those will be labeled in the description of this video. So if you're watching this and you want to skip to one of those parts to see how it's done, then please do so. So like I said, I'm going to start with the handle. So we'll come right over here. I'm going to click sketch to make a new sketch. I'm going to assume you've done the name tag and some other things so you know what's going on here. Because the handle is going to be sticking upward, I'm going to click on the top plane here to make a sketch there. And I'm going to start this with a circle right here on the origin of my entire drawing. Now, I am going to also quickly change my units to millimeters because I accidentally left them, or to inches because I left them in millimeters. There we go. Okay, so this is a circle, right? We need to dimension it. Well, let's take a look back here for a second. The diameter of the circle for the handle is 1/2 of an inch. So I'm going to go dimension, click on the circle, type 1/2, enter. And there we go. I have my circle created for my axe handle. I'm going to click the check mark. Let's pop back to the drawing for a second and see that the handle is 4 inches long. So when I do the extrude tool and I select this circle, I'm going to choose a distance of 4 inches to make that axe handle. So there's my axe handle for my little toy axe. Let's take a look now again. So next is the axe head here. Okay, if we look, this is really a rectangle plus maybe a part of a circle, or we call it an arc, and 2 lines sticking off there at 45 degrees. I decided ahead of time. So you might say, well, how are we going to create that? Well, if we think about it, if we were looking at the front of this object, boy, that looks an awful lot like this picture. I can create that axe head right on the front plane. So I'm going to make a sketch on the front plane here. And now I'm going to just create this rough shape. So I can do that with the line tool. I'm going to make sure that it goes down inside of the axe head here a little. Actually, no, we'll just make it so it touches right on the top. So I'm going to just draw a line that starts right around here. And we can kind of make this stuff line up later. I'm going to draw the general shape. I'm not going to worry about the size or the angles yet. I'm going to hit escape to do a new line because I really should have done this from the bottom. I'm actually going to move this dot. Oop, we'll do a line here. If I hover over a dot, it'll make it so it lines up to that, and then I can do this. And this is actually going to cause those points to kind of lock together so that they are there. And let's actually just tweak this here for a second. I'm just going to get rid of these 2 lines and replace them with a single line. So I'm just clicking on those and hitting backspace, and that gets rid of them. So we can add some other things to this to make it work to our advantage. If I say pick this line and I click the top of my circle and I go up to this thing that's right next to dimensions and I find the coincident button, it's going to make those 2 lines be on top of each other. That's what coincident means. So that's just a little trick. There's lots of options in there, like you can make 2 lines parallel to one another. You can make them locked into a horizontal position or a horizontal position or a vertical position, perpendicular to one another. There's lots of options that you can do by picking 2 objects. So that's something you can think about. Let's also make an arc. So for this, I'm going to click the 3-point arc. So I'll pick the starting point, the end point, and then the middle point. And you know, that looks about right. That looks like an axe. And now I have a nice closed shape here. Let's just go back to our drawing for a second, look at the sizes. So I wanted this to be 1.5 inches tall, so I'm going to dimension it. Click that line, 1.5. Let's see, what other ones? From here to that little point where it turns, let's do another 1.5. So that's this line, 1.5, enter. Okay. Let's do from here. I don't know if we can actually get this to go from here to the end. Let's find out. If I pick these two, oh, look at that. All right, so we can dimension that. What did I say? 2 inches. Ooh, so that looks a little weird. So sometimes you're going to do a dimension, it's going to get weird like this, and you're like, oh, I don't want that. So I guess my dimension over here was bad. I picked a bad number. Let's try 3. Ah, that looks a little better. Maybe I could even do 2.5, 2.5. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, I like 3 better. So you can always come back in here and change those dimensions by double-clicking on them till you get things looking the way you want. Let's try setting the angle here between, we need something like this and something vertical. Well, we don't have anything, so maybe I won't worry about the angle here too much. Sometimes you're going to get to things and you're going to say, well, that sizing looks right. For this class, you don't have to stress about totally giving a dimension to every single line on this object. It's not always going to work, and that's going to be okay. Normally, we like to try to turn all of the lines, we say black, and that means that they can't move anymore. But like I said, I'm not going to super stress or worry over that right now. So let's just roll with this, kind of drag this till it looks about right. And ooh, now I messed things up. Let's just undo. Sometimes that happens too. Ooh. Redo. There we go. All right, let's leave it alone. So I'm going to click the check mark. Okay. Now I need to make this 3-dimensional. Okay. When I'm looking at this, it does not yet look like the top view up here. Ooh, and I didn't set how thick this needs to be. Well, if the diameter of this object was 1/2 inch, and this is a little less than that, maybe this needs to be like 3/4 of 1/2 inch, or we could say 3/8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Extrude, and I'm going to pick this shape. And I want to make sure, oh good, it switched to add. So it's going to add it. That means it's going to attach it to the X. And I want it to be centered on there. Well, watch this. If instead of going blindly in one direction, I switch this to symmetric, it's going to go symmetrically out in 2 directions. And, you know, looking up at my drawing here, I had it so the axe was thinner than the handle, but I think it would be better if I made it the same thickness as the handle. And this depth, when you do symmetric, is the total depth when you add up both directions. So let's do, I think it is at least. Let's try doing 1/2 and see what happens. Yeah, there we go. So now it's 1/2 inch across this whole object. And if I click check mark, okay, look at that. Now I have a nice axe that is attached right to that object. So that is how you would make the axe part of this. If we jump for another second to try to make the log, we could just do that off to the side here. Why don't we do another sketch? We're going to click the top plane again. I'm going to make another circle, and I'm going to line it up just for ease on the eyes and stuff. I'm going to line it up over here with that origin point. And I'm going to click to make the circle, and let's see, how big did I want this? I wanted the diameter, the distance across the whole circle to be 2 inches. So let's do that. Diameter, dimension, diameter, 2, enter. Okay, so there's our 2-inch log. And then let's also make a little slice in the middle of this. So there's a couple ways we can do this. I think probably the easiest way is let's draw a line that goes right down the middle. So I hovered over the middle to get it to lock onto that. And then I'm just going to draw like a line that goes down through it. And now what I can do is I can offset this. I want the total distance of the gap to be 1/8 inch. So what I can do is say offset, pick this line, and it's going to offset that any distance that I want. If I want it to be 1/8 inch in 2 directions, I have to go 1/2 to the left and 1/2 to the right. So I can do that pretty easily. 1/2 is a 16th. Okay, if we multiply 1/8 by 1/2, we keep a 1 in the top and we get a 16 in the bottom. So that's 1/8 inch. If this doesn't make sense, you don't necessarily need to hear all of this. You can just do your best with what you've got. But I'm going to type 1/16 there. And let's do another offset in the opposite direction. Offset. We're going to click this arrow to flip it. And then I'm going to click the number there. I'm going to do a 16th that way. Did I do 1/16? Yeah. Okay. And then the last step we got to do is we got to trim. Actually, I think we can just leave it like this. Let's see what happens. I'm going to click the check mark. Okay, and now I'm just going to extrude the two halves. So I'll click extrude. I'll pick this half. I'll pick this half. Okay. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. Okay, and this is going to create two new pieces. See how they're a different color, so there'll be two brand new pieces. How tall did I make it? Go back to my drawing. I made it 3 inches tall. Let's see what that looks like if I type 3, enter. Yeah, that looks about right. Okay, check mark. So now I have my log halves, and we actually see these different parts appear down here in the bottom. So I could right click on this and say rename and call this axe. I could call this log half 1. Oops, I picked too many things. So I'll click an empty space to unselect. Right click, rename, log half 1. You don't have to rename these, but it's nice. It makes it easier later. Log half 2. Okay, so I have my two log halves. I can go back to a regular view by going to this cube and saying isometric. If I want these planes to go away because I'm tired of seeing them, okay, I can hit P on the keyboard and that will hide the planes. Okay, P on the keyboard makes things a little easier to see. So now I have my axe, and that's pretty much done. Okay, so if this is making sense so far, that might be where you're going to stop. But I also want to show here on this axe how we could make this top part a little more narrow. So I'm going to click on the top of the view cube here, and I'm going to make a sketch right on this flat part. This was the flat part over here. So we could do it from the top, or I needed to change the angle to see which part of it. And so now I'm sketching right on the top of that object. So watch this. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to use the use tool, which is going to let me use all of these edges that already exist on the axe. And what I can do then is draw some lines from this point right to the midpoint. You see I move around and it snaps to the middle of that and back of that top part there. And now what I should be able to do is go to extrude, and I'm going to pick remove this time, and I'm going to click these two outside triangles. And I'm going to go like this. Again, I'm going to do symmetric, and I'm going to go really far. I'm going to go in both directions here. We'll go symmetric, and we'll go like 5 inches just to go crazy. There we go. And what that has the effect of doing is it goes up and down 5 inches total, and it creates a shape to that axe that is a little more axe-like. So you can pretty much do anything you want in Onshape as long as it works, and you're pretty much, as long as you're creating closed shapes and then either using extrude to add material or remove material, you are pretty much at the freedom of your imagination. So that kind of concludes this video tutorial on how to make a little axe. If you've got questions on this or you want to know other things, please let me know. I know this is a little long. You may have skipped around in it. The parts will be labeled in the description, but that is all. So hope this helps, people.